Shalom friends, welcome to this video. Today we're learning about some introductions into the study of Kabbalah. If you are new to my channel or if you've seen it before, you'll know one thing about me is that I enjoy the study very much, and I've already prepared a number of videos for people interested in knowing more about the study. Now, I've introduced the viewer to a number of books, my top 10 best books which I suggest people should read before embarking in the study of Kabbalah. And I've also introduced the viewer to one of my favorite studies, which is the study of the Otzrot Chaim. This is the Otzrot Chaim, as you see, and I'm going to be using the introductions in the Otzrot Chaim to give the viewer an opportunity to grow in the study of Kabbalah, how to get into the study in more detail. Now, this particular edition that I have was written by Rabbi Daniel Frish, and it's easily available. And I do strongly suggest that those who are interested in studying Kabbalah begin with this book because it begins with introductions and thereafter moves into the study of the Otzrot Chaim, which is a foundational work in the study of Kabbalah, in which it teaches basically the whole system of the Hishtalshelut, which is the chain-like event of descent of all the worlds as they come into existence, all the spiritual worlds coming into existence, and also the binyan Partzufim, the building up of the Partzufim, which are the essential archetypes, let's say, in order to create and cause reactions in this world to make things happen. The spiritual has an effect into the physical has an effect back to the spiritual, and we need to understand the flow between the two of them. Now, what we're going to be doing is, in today's lesson, we're going to answer the question of the chiyuv limud sodot haTorah, the obligation of the study of the secrets of the Torah. This is the first section in the introduction that he brings here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it so that everybody can hear exactly how he describes it. And in this way, we will achieve the goal of appreciating and valuing that there is a mitzvah to engage in the study of Kabbalistic texts. And in fact, as we'll see in future shiurim, Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll understand more about the value of what it means to study these particular texts. We'll learn about the best times to study, what the different texts are, how to go about the study, and so on and so forth. In today's lesson, however, we're going to cover the ground from a number of points of view of the value of studying this particular study. So I'm going to be reading it and translating it as we go along. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send me a question via my website, www.lovingkindness.co, or alternatively, please feel free to make a comment in the comment section. Okay, the author begins and he brings down a quote, a teaching from the Shulchan Aruch HaRav in Hilchos Talmud Torah in Siman Daled. And he says over there, this comes from the Alter Rebbe himself, the first Rebbe of the Lubavitch Chabad movement, and he says the following in the laws of studying Torah. In fact, the Alter Rebbe's writings on the halachas of Talmud Torah are authoritative. It's a wonderful work to go through, and it helps us to analyze exactly what we need to learn in terms of our obligations in studying Torah. And he says the following, Amru Chachmei HaEmet, the sages of truth say, Shekol nefesh tricha letikuna la'asok bepardes, that every single soul needs, for the sake of its rectification, to engage itself in what's called Pardes. Pardes is Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod. There are 4 levels to the study of Torah. Pshat is the simple meaning. Remez is the hint, which is like, what can I get out of it? Is there something additional I should learn out of it? After the Remez is the Drush or the Drush, which is the exposition, the homiletical understanding of the Torah, and then the Sod, the secrets of the Torah. So let's just analyze that in a little bit more detail. The Pshat is when we study Torah on the surface level. The Remez is when we go into Torah and we study, for example, the gematriot, the numerical value of words, and we see how the words and the sentences connect with each other. The next level is the Drush, which is the exposition, which is the homiletics, which is the Midrash, in which we find out more about the stories that are involved in our learning that we do. And of course, the Sod is the secrets of the Torah. And it's brought down that if one only engages in the 3 levels of Torah without the Sod, in other words, the Pshat, the Remez, and the Drush, it is like one is like a pered, one is like a mule. And therefore, one needs to add the Sod to add to be Pardes. I'm going to go into the orchards of the Torah. And he points out that everybody has an obligation, says the Alter Rebbe in Hilchos Talmud Torah. Everybody has an obligation according to whatever he is able to achieve and to know. That is his obligation to study Torah. And a person who is able to achieve a lot, and a person who's lazy and he doesn't put in the effort to study and to know in just a little bit, he has to come in a reincarnation until eventually he is able to conceive and to know everything that's possible for his soul to know, in order that he can achieve from the knowledge of Torah. Every person has to come into this world in order to do tikkunim. In fact, this is one of the highlights of the study of Kabbalah, is that we need to know what do we need to do in this world to achieve our goals of perfection. God puts the soul into this world in order to achieve a particular goal. It has to correct itself. The soul must undergo certain changes in this world to rectify its nature. And the Kabbalah comes along and it teaches us there are certain things that we need to do. And of course, everything is based on three basic principles: the study of the Torah, the fulfillment of mitzvahs, and the effort and the avodah of prayer. These three things bring us to achieve our goal in creation. Now, therefore, a person is obligated to study the secrets of Torah as much as he's obligated to study all other areas in order to achieve the goal of rectification of his soul. He's got to do whatever is necessary for his soul to achieve, and then he'll come to know what is necessary, whether it's in the simple halachot he needs to learn, whether it's in the hint side, the drashot, or in the homiletics, in the midrashic side, the Seder Torah, and also in the secrets of the Torah. This is the wording of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe points out every single person needs to achieve the goal. He must familiarize himself with all four levels of Torah. Of course, he has to engage in mitzvah observance, and for that he should learn a work, for example, like the Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, the Yad HaChazakah, and through studying the 1017 chapters of the Rambam, a person will come to learn how to engage in the fulfillment of all the mitzvahs of the Torah. And of course, as time progresses, he'll study the Shulchan Aruch as well. He'll study the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. He'll study all of the great authorities, the Rishonim, the Achronim. He'll study the Talmud, etc., and so on and so forth. So a person needs to engage in mitzvah observance. He needs to engage in prayer, and he needs to engage in the study of Torah. When it comes to the study of Torah, it means the study of all four areas of the Torah. Base. Now, in the matter of the occupation in the Torah, which is actually one of the 248 positive mitzvahs of the Torah consists of 248 positive mitzvahs, and it consists of 365 negative mitzvahs. The 365 negative mitzvahs teach us to be aware of being on guard all 365 days of the year, and the 248 positive mitzvahs, which correspond to the limbs of a person's body, at least according to what Chazal teach us, that there are 248 limbs in the body, we need to engage in all the limbs in the observance of the mitzvot. One of the mitzvahs that we must engage in is the study of Torah. Im lo hishlimota, so if a person doesn't complete it, shehu inyan asko bepardes haTorah, and that is the matter of occupying oneself in the Pardes of Torah, in the orchards of the Torah. One enters into the secrets of Torah, into the orchard of the Torah, through means of studying all these four areas of the Torah. In every aspect of them, he must engage in it to the ability that he has in order to attain what he can do. And therefore a person should put in effort to try to find for himself a teacher who will teach him. Obviously, if a person opens up a book and he finds it's too difficult for him to understand, he should engage in hiring a teacher who will help him to understand what the Torah is really teaching him. And he'll know exactly for his level how to be guided onto the road that he needs to be upon. And if he didn't do so, he's going to be lacking one mitzvah of the study of Torah. And in fact, the mitzvah of studying Torah is parallel, is weighty, as involving oneself in all the other mitzvahs. A person will therefore need to be reincarnated until eventually he works himself through all these four aspects of the Pardes Kaniskar, and this is the wording of the Holy Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, in the Shar HaMitzvot, one of the 8 gates of the big work of the Shmona Sha'arim, the 8 gates of the Arizal, written by his pupil Reb Chaim Vital. Now Gimel, again we quote from the Tanya this time, the wording of the Alter Rebbe. Listen to what the Alter Rebbe says in the Kuntres Acharon. The Tanya is divided into 5 sections. The 5th section is a very difficult section to go through. It deals with difficulties involved in certain things that were mentioned in previous sections in the Tanya, together with the Kabbalistic aspects that relate to those particular sections. It is not easy by any means, and we're only going to read one point over here. Listen to these beautiful words. Yediat ha-metziot me-hishtalshelut. Now, the knowledge of the existence of this whole system of spiritual evolution as the worlds come down from above to below in a chain-like descent. That's what the word Hishtalshelut means, from the word shalshelet, which is a chain. Hi gamkein mitzvah rabbah v'nisa'a. It is also a very great mitzvah and a high mitzvah, a very exalted mitzvah. V'adarabah, on the contrary, ole al kulana, this mitzvah is above all other mitzvahs. The Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the author of the Tanya, the author of the Shulchan Aruch Harav, writes at the very end, well, if it's not that he really wrote it at the end, he wrote it at another time in his life, but the point is that the sons of the Alter Rebbe put the whole system of the Tanya into its particular organization, and they included this particular letter that they wanted everybody to read it. And he says over here that the mitzvah of knowing the Hishtalshelut, just to understand the concept of how the worlds descend until eventually they come down into this physical world, as it says, V'yadata hayom. It says, and you shall know today, Da es Elokei avicha, you shall know the God of your father. Umevia lelev shalem, and it brings a person to have a complete heart. Shehu ha'ikar, and that is the main thing. A person must come to have a complete heart. He must work on himself. He must refine himself. When he starts to learn and understands the concept of the Hishtalshelut, and he sees how he fits into it, he sees how he fits into the system, this actually brings him to have a complete heart. These are the words of the Alter Rebbe. Brought down Likutei Amarim, Tanya, Kuntres Acharon, Daf Kuf Nun Vav Amud Beis. It's worthwhile to check it out if you haven't seen it, and see it for yourself. Now, the next section he deals with, the title is Ha'omer Dai Li Benigla Noach Lo Shelo Nivra. The title says that a person who says it is sufficient for me that I should study only the revealed Torah, it would be better for him were he not to be created. Wow, these are strong words. Let's see what he says in the paragraph. Ha'omer, a person who says Dai Li Beniglas Only Esek Benistarot. I am going to be it's going to be sufficient for me if I study only the revealed parts of the Torah. I do not have to occupy myself in hidden matters. So it says over there, Tav le de lo ibrei ba'alma. It would be better for him not to be created in the world. As is brought in the Tikkun Zohar, listen to the wording of the Tikkun Zohar, the great work which is written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He says the following, Tikkun Mem Gimel. This is what he says. Vahachi mandgarim de istalek Kabbalah v'chochmasa me'oraisa. And this person who causes that the Kabbalah and the wisdom of the Torah is going to be removed, the Baal Peh, and he's going to take it away from the Torah She'Baal Peh, from the oral Torah, u'me'oraisa de biksav, and he removes it from the written Torah. V'garim de lo yishtadlun bohon, and he causes that people are not going to occupy themselves in them. V'amrin, and he says the law is el pshat bo'raisa uva talmuda. He says that there's no such thing except for the simple meaning of the Torah and the Talmud. That's all I want to learn. I just want to learn the surface. As the Zohar itself points out a very dangerous thing, he says this type of person can be compared to somebody who sees, for example, a king, and the king is dressed in his glorious garments, wonderful garments. And when the person greets the king, he thinks that everything about the king relates to his garments. He sees the king. When he hugs the king, he thinks he's hugging the garments, and so on and so forth. But who is the fool to think such a thing? The reality is the king is inside the garments, and the garments are only there to beautify who the king is, and really what we need to do is to appreciate who the king himself is. And therefore, when we begin to engage, for example, in reading the stories of the Tanakh, and we read about Adam and Chava, and we read about Cain and Hevel, we read about Avram, Yitzhak and Yaakov, and Noach, etc., etc., we tend to think that these are just baby stories, just stories that somebody might be able to write of their own accord. We could all write such stories. This is a person who only looks at the garments, but the reality is to remember that there is something hidden underneath the garments. And that's what we're speaking about here. We do not want to separate and imagine that there's only a simple understanding to the Torah, but rather there are layers upon layers. It's like certainly a person who removes the flow of the river, or me'ahugan, and from the garden. Vaile, woe to that person. Tavle de lo ibre ba'alma. It would be better if he weren't created in the world. Velo yalifahi or raisa de biksav. And he shouldn't study the written Torah, v'oraisa de ba'al peh, and the oral Torah. The itkashev le ki'ilu akzar alma letov avohu, because it will be considered to him as if he's simply turning the world around into its original state of chaos and void. V'gari mani yusa ba'alma, and he causes poverty in the world, v'orech galusa, and he causes the exile to be lengthened. Upirish harav kisei melech sham. Now, the Rav, who was the author of the beautiful book called Kisei HaMelech, Rabbi Shalom Buzaglo, one of the great Kabbalists who lived in the 18th century, 1700 to 1780. He was an outstanding Kabbalist. He spent some time in London for a period of time. He was tortured by the certain authorities in the land that he lived. He was tortured viciously by them, and eventually he left the country and he went to stay in London. And I think he died, if I'm not mistaken, he died in London. He was a very great tzaddik. And he says over there, "V'zeh l'shona bekitzur, tavle de lo ibrei ba'alma." It's better if he weren't created in the world. V'lo yalifahi or raisa. And then he wouldn't study the Torah altogether, because he misses the purpose of studying Torah. Torah is not just about the revealed side. There is a hidden part to the Torah. It's all very well and good to learn about all the mitzvot that we have to do, and we must learn about it. But we must spend some time to learn the secrets, to understand and appreciate whatever we can of who God really is. How can I understand godliness? How can I understand my soul? How can I understand the purpose for which I'm in this world for? These are important points in our lives, and therefore we must be careful not to separate that from the revealed side of the Torah. So he says here, She'im haya am ha'aretz yoter tov lo. If this person were to be an am ha'aretz, he didn't know anything, it would be even better for him. Ki az eino pogem es im eino lomed Kabbalah, because then he would not cause a blemish if he would not study Kabbalah, because in any case he's an am ha'aretz, the poor fellow doesn't really know much about anything altogether, and so therefore he doesn't engage in it. Aval manda olif Torah sheba'al peh, but a person who already studies the oral Torah, onsho kol kach gadol, his punishment is very great. Im lo yilmad Kabbalah, if he'll not study Kabbalah. V'adarabba, on the contrary, pogem belimodo, he will cause a blemish in his studies. V'tav leida lo yalif la, l'Torah sheba'al peh, and it would be better for him if he wouldn't study the oral Torah. Ki aksa alma letov avo, says Rabbi Shalom Buzaglo, he says, he will cause that the world will be returned back to chaos and void before it was created into a world of Tikkun. Shehu sod shevirat hakelim, and this was the secret of the shattering of the vessels. Shemagbir haklipot, and it causes all the forces of evil to be strengthened. V'oise hanahar v'hagan yabasha, and he causes that the river and the garden will become dry. Demana hatipas razei Torah mehem, that he prevents the drops of the secrets of Torah from them. Umishi yachol liknot lo rav, and he points out that a person who is able to afford that he can hire for himself a teacher in Kabbalah, a Rav sheyilumeduhu Kabbalah, they'll teach in Kabbalah, or chaver, or he can find a friend, either to teach him, or alternatively to learn with him, or mitok asfarim, or he's going to study from the books themselves. And today, there are countless books that are available for everybody to be able to learn from. And already, as I said before, I did prepare already a video in great detail of 10 of my suggested best books from which a person can learn to get started in the study of Kabbalah. And therefore, everyone has the option and opportunity today to get the books that are necessary to get a start into this study. Of course, with the internet available today, it's very easy also to find numerous articles and websites that give translations and that give all the information that one needs to grow in one's study. ומי שיכול לקנות לו רב שם לקבלה, או חבר, או מתוך הספרים, או מתרשל, and this person is negligent, גורם אורך גלותה, he causes a lengthening on the exile. And this is brought down by the Beis Lechem Yehuda on the Eitz Chaim. The Beis Lechem Yehuda brings this down as a commentary, and he says, he brings down Rav Shalom Buzaglo, who is the Kisei Melech, and he says this is what he said, and the Beis Lechem Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda Pataya, who lived in the 18th, 19th century, so he is the classic commentator for the Eitz Chaim, a Sephardi Rav, great tzaddik, and basically anybody who wants to learn Eitz Chaim today needs to study the Eitz Chaim together with Rav Yehuda Pataya, or Fataya, however you pronounce the name exactly, Pataya, Fataya, and it is known as the Beis Lechem Yehuda. Hey, v'hagra mi Vilna. What is the Gra? Rabbi Eliyahu Kramer of Vilna, the Vilna Gaon. What does he say about the study of Kabbalah? He says the following. He says in his book, Even Shelemah, a classic work on the study of Musar, a classic work on improving one's character traits, a classic work on working on oneself. It's a classic work in general, the Even Shelemah. Interestingly enough, it is called after the name of the Vilna Gaon, Even Shelemah, which is actually Aleph ben Shelemah, which is his name. Aleph is Eliyahu, ben, which is the son of Shelemah, which is not Shelemah, it's Shlomo, because that was his father's name. So it's Eliyahu ben Shlomo, he called the name of his book, the Even Shelemah. And he says over there that Torah, a person who was able to be able to attain the secrets of Torah. He was able to grasp the secrets of Torah. And he doesn't put the effort in order to acquire them. He will be judged with great judgments, God forbid. So even the Vilna Gaon, in other words, we see on the Sephardi team that the rabbis were very strict about the importance of studying Kabbalah and learning the secrets of Torah. And we see on the Ashkenazi team that they too are very strict. No lesser authority than the Vilna Gaon himself, the great authority in the Ashkenazi world in the 18th century. And he tells us how important it is to engage in the learning of these secrets of Torah. Now, the Kasav Harav Rabbeinu Sheptel, now the Shefatal, I believe that he's referring to the Shefatal, who is known as the Sheftel. So, if I'm not mistaken, he says Betzavato in his will. He says Hanitfas Besof Sefer Yesh Nochalim. It's brought down in the Sefer, and he says V'hineni Mitzavchem. I give a command to you, Shetelamdu Chochmes HaKabbalah, that you must study the wisdom of Kabbalah. Ki ein Adam Yirei Shamayim, because a person cannot really become a God-fearing person. Mi she'eino lomed chochmezo. Somebody who does not study this wisdom. And a person who studies this Kabbalah, this mysticism, this wonderful teaching that we're speaking about, and he studies it with awe and with fear, he will see that his world will be in the world of Atzilut. In the world of Kabbalah, there are 4 different worlds. The highest world is called Atzilut. The next world is called Bria, the next world is called Yetzira, and the next world is called Asiya. And then within the world of Asiya, as we go lower, we get the physical aspect of Asiya, which is the world that we live in here, the world of action. And that is why action is the most important thing in this world. We need to engage in things. We need to engage in mitzvah observance. We need to engage in the study of Torah by speaking our words. We need to engage in the thought processes that we go through. In this world, we need to engage in all these different levels. Actual action of doing. So he says over here that a person who engages in the study will see that his soul will reach to the world of Atzilut, which is the highest world, a world of complete godliness. Miniyas Limud beSodot Torah ma'akev, or Sitrei Torah ma'akev hagula. He says that when we don't study the secrets of Torah, we prevent the redemption from coming. Ubebir hagra al Tikkun Zohar. He brings down the commentary of, again, the Gra, HaGaon, Rebbe Eliyahu, that means Eliyahu, the Gaon of Vilna, and he says he commentated on the Tikkun Zohar, and he says, Bishvil ze holech rucho shel Mashiach v'lo ba hagula. It is on this account that the spirit of Mashiach goes away and the redemption doesn't come. The rucho hi ruach chochma, because his spirit is the spirit of wisdom. Kemoshe kasav Koshekosov be'idra rabba, as it's brought in Idra Rabba. Ukeshe'ein lomdim bezos ha'chochma hu mitacher. And this is what the Vilna Gaon says, that when people are not studying this wisdom, he says that this causes a delay for Mashiach to come. So somehow along the way, when we engage in the study and we learn what the secrets of Torah are, and we learn about our souls, and we learn about godliness, this hastens the coming of Mashiach. Kodem ha'geula, limud Torah's hanistar, tavlin liyetzer hara. Now there's another advantage to studying the secrets of Torah, and that is that before the redemption, that the study of the hidden secrets acts as a spice for the Yetzer Hara. Well, what does this mean exactly, that it acts as a spice? Mikoidem haya dai b'Torah's hanigles. In the beginning, it was sufficient when we simply had the revealed Torah. Avalata be'ikvasa de Mashiach. But now, in the times of the heel steps of Mashiach, tzarich lihiyot gam Torah's hanistar. There must also be the hidden Torah. We see, for example, the story of a candle that is lit. And then before the candle goes out, it starts to flutter like this, even more. And the flame starts to go out. It starts to go upwards even more. It starts to flash. So too. In the beginning, lo haya Yetzer Hara mitgaber kol kach. In the beginning generations, the Yetzer Hara was not as strong, in other words, as it is today. V'haya da Torah hanigle letavlin lenegdo, and it was sufficient to engage in the revealed Torah against the Yetzer Hara. Aval ata kodem ha'geula, but now before the redemption, Yetzer Hara mitgaber yoter. The Yetzer Hara is increasing. As it gets closer and closer to the times of the redemption, the Yetzer Hara is increasing against us with all sorts of new plots, with all sorts of new systems to get us to go against Hashem. And therefore we must also occupy ourselves in the hidden side of the Torah. This is brought down in the Torah's Simcha, Sefer Torah's Simcha, which is written by Rav Buni Parshis Siska. Okay, point tet, the final point in this section. In the work which is called the Darchei Chaim V'Shalom, in Os Taf Taf Pei Daled, it says over there, that he very much loved the students who would occupy themselves in the hidden wisdom, in the wisdom of truth. He writes in his book, in the Minchas Elazar, he says the following, a person must be very careful in the study. As it's brought down in the introduction of the Eitz Chaim, the most central work in the study of Kabbalah. And in another beautiful work called Sur Meirav Asay Tov, which we'll speak about later, a fantastic work written by the Maharza Mizidichov, that's Rav Tzvi Hirsch of Zidichov. He wrote a very wonderful work in which he explains the conditions that are necessary to involve oneself, that before you study Kabbalah, you must set yourself on the right path. And there are certain conditions that are brought down by Reb Chaim Vital in the introduction to the Eitz Chaim, where he stipulates certain things that we should be prepared for when we engage in the study, in order that we don't come to any harm. Now, in this book, as well as the Hakdama of Eitz Chaim over there, it says that, and Usha'ar Sefarim Kedoshim, in other holy works, Shebizmanenu be'ikvased de Mashiach, that in our times, in the heel steps of Mashiach, Tzrichim lilmod ze ha'chochma, we must study this wisdom. And in particular, a person whose soul feels a longing, a desire to study it, it is imperative that such an individual involve himself in the study. The fact that he desires to study it is a sign in itself that his soul wants to attach itself to Hashem. He wants to cleave to Hashem. Now, Neshomas shebe'ikvasat Mashiach ein chashash legalut lahem sodot haTorah. With regards to the souls that now exist in our world at the moment, which are in the heel steps of Mashiach, which means that it's just on we're coming to Mashiach, it's like with the heel steps. We're on the very lowest level, meaning we're right there. There's no more to go. And there Mashiach is going to reveal himself. He says, at this point in time, there is no worry to reveal to people the secrets of the Torah. The Sodot HaTorah, the Sitrei Torah. Doiros harishonim, the first generations, mitzad goydel tzidkatam, on account of the great righteousness that they had. They were able to enter into the palace of the king in order to attain the attainment of godliness, to be able to conceive godliness. They were able to do it. And they were able to enter into the treasuries, which are the treasuries of the king. היה רשוס להם להיכנס לחדריו מלחפש בגנזיו וסיטריו, רק כל אחד ואחד לפי ערכו ושיעורו. That therefore they didn't have permission to enter into these rooms and to search out in all of these treasuries, all these secrets. רק כל אחד ואחד לפי ערכו ושיעורו. Every person only according to his measurement, according to his level. אבל על סתרים שהם אינם בערכו, but in levels of hiddenness, of secrets that weren't according to their level, lo haya lo reshus להשיג זה. People never had the ability to achieve it. כי אולי יוכל לטעות באיזה דבר, because maybe a person could make a mistake and he wouldn't be able to understand what he was learning. אבל עתה, but now, בדורס האלו, in our generations, אין מי שיקנוס לחדרי המלך. There isn't a person who can enter into the rooms of the king, Basagot amitis mamash, who can go into the full truth of it, because the doors of the palaces of the king are all locked. And even though our generations are our generation now is very dear, there are also great people, great souls, who can enter into the palaces of the king. But these are individual people that they come from great souls, they come for the sake of repairing the generation. But in a general way, the souls in our time, they come from the heels, which means the lowest level. Therefore, there is no longer a fear to reveal to them the hidden treasures of the king, in order that through their seeing the greatness, v'tif'ato, and the splendor, they will be moved to nullify the yesh, the existence, and they'll be able to unite themselves with Hashem. This is brought down in the Shara Yichud Vayemuna of the Rav of Shreshesla in his Hakdama. Let us just read one more point, and I think we'll leave it at that in the middle, and then we can continue in another shiur onwards to the next section. A person is not free to keep himself away under any circumstance from studying this wisdom. Hilulim LaHashem, in this particular book called the Kodesh Hilulim LaHashem, Ma'atik Mikdav Me'agon HaKadosh Rav Hillel Kalamaya. He brings down over there a teaching from Rav Hillel Kalamaya. And he says the following: Kain be'inyan limud haTorah. So too it is in the matter of studying Torah. Palgei maim yadu einai bizichri. There are rivers of water that go down my eyes. I'm crying when I think about Mashira iti b'svarim rabim ne'emanim. What that I saw in many books that were faithful. Mimakom kadosh yatsu. They came from a holy place. Kulam ke'echadonim, everybody says, ki ikar gufei haTorah, hu limud hanistar, that the main thing of the main part of Torah is the study of the hidden matters. Ve'ein ata ben chorim libatel mimena, and nobody is free to exempt himself from studying it. B'shum ofen, under no circumstances. Even a person who can't study it completely, a person will merit an internal fear, and a great love. Because he can't compare such an individual who recognizes the greatness of his master and the splendor of his master to a person who does not understand that. And this is really what the study of Kabbalah is all about. We want to understand something about Hashem, whatever we can. Let me point out over here as well, let me not go away without pointing out that the study of Chassidut is an element of the study of Kabbalah. It is a type of a practical understanding. So there is one level to study the Kabbalah as a raw study in itself, and there is a place for it, and it must be worked on. And then there is a practical application where a person might find himself at a loss of how to put this into action. When he studies various works in Chassidut, he begins to understand the practical application which comes out later. So in today's lesson so far, where we've got to is point Yud Beis in this introduction of the Peticha in the Otzrot Chaim written by Rabbi Daniel Frish. This is its introduction, and he's bringing all these sources in so we can understand the beauty of involving ourselves in the study. Just to give you an idea of some of the themes that we will encounter in future shiurim, is that we will speak about things like the Ma'alat Limud Sodot HaTorah. We'll speak about things like the great level, or the great advantage of studying the secrets of Torah. We're going to speak about things like the study of the Kabbalah together with the study of the revealed Torah, the importance of studying both of them together. And we'll also speak about some very important concepts related to conditions in learning Kabbalah. It's very important that a person knows where he's at in terms of who he is, and therefore what is required of him at the time that he engages in the study of Kabbalah. And that a person shouldn't just negate all other studies for the sake of Kabbalah, for Kabbalistic studies, and assume that he's going to be a big Kabbalist. That is not the direction to take. In fact, it is the study of the Kabbalah that makes a person more humble to realize that, in fact, there is a lot more to be done. He needs to study all of Torah. He needs to engage in the mitzvahs according to the halachas in the Shulchan Aruch. He needs to pray to Hashem 3 times a day, and even more, involve himself in meditations and so on and so forth. These are all great themes that we will encounter as we learn more. And then, as you see over here in Perik Hey, as I'm looking over here on the title, we will learn more about how to complete oneself in terms of one's humility and one's modesty of spirit. Then we will learn about times that are the most beautiful times to engage in the study of Kabbalah. There are certain times that are auspicious, so that when we engage in those times, we'll be in a state of being more favorable to understanding the Kabbalistic teachings. There are certain times during the day, during the year, and so on, which are more special and conducive to studying this particular teaching. We will learn about the importance of separating ourselves from physical matters. Or most of the Kabbalistic subjects that we speak about are all related to physical matters. We'll speak about a father and a mother, Abba and Ima. We'll speak about zivug, the aspect of coupling, of the relationship between Abba and Ima, of zer anpin and nukva, all the relationships that occur. We speak about aspects of birth. We speak about aspects of suckling. We speak about aspects of pregnancy. I'm going backwards now. Pregnancy, suckling, and birth. And all of these sound like very physical aspects. It's very important and vital that we remove ourselves away from all of these physical aspects, but rather we need to learn to understand how the physical relates to the spiritual. So we're going to learn more about how we separate ourselves from all of these aspects. And we should also know that even though the last chapter here deals with, even though we know that there are times of trial when we study this particular teaching, it's not so easy. There are concepts that are difficult to understand. There are themes that don't seem to make any sense to us. We can't seem to grab and catch onto what the topics are speaking about. He brings down here in the last section that a person should nevertheless strengthen himself, and he should realize that if he continues to work on himself and he engages in the study, that indeed he'll be successful in all of his studies, and he'll come to understand what this study is all about. Thanks very much for joining me. I'm Eliyahu Sher from Chesed Ve'emet, my website, www.lovingkindness.co. If you've enjoyed the shir, please give it a thumbs up and like, in other words, and please do subscribe to my channel, share the video with your friends, and always, as always, please feel free to make comments in the comment section. I look forward to positive comments, things that we can discuss together, and feel free to contact me via my website. If you'd like to learn one-on-one with me through these books or other books, any books in Torah, if you'd like to learn to become a sofer, or perhaps you'd like to learn the laws of niddah for family purity, perhaps you're getting married and you're preparing for your relationship together with your wife and your family, these are laws that need to be studied. I do teach all of these things, and please feel free to be in touch with me, and we can go ahead and get together and discuss all of these issues. Likewise, if you are going through various trials in your life and you'd like to speak more about it on a professional level, as in the concept of a life coach in a spiritual aspect from what we learn from the Torah, please be in touch with me. I do offer my services in this area as well. I look forward to seeing you in another video, and I wish you all the best. Take care. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.